you hear me?
Yes, the show's going. Hello everyone. Welcome to the YouTube Mile Builders Thursday night general hangout. Thursday's hangouts are for the general discussion on mile railroading that we all can set a topic to discuss for the night. Thursday's hangouts are the proud sponsor of the Tuesday night presentations, the YouTube Mile Builders, eMag, and the YouTube Mile Builders live show. I want to say thanks for everybody joining in tonight's show. And here's your host for the night, Johnny Reb of Southeast Rails. Okay, here we go, rock and roll. Now see, we got a few people over in the chat. We got Dwight, Ron in Australia, Bill, Lee, John. How y'all doing? Hey Jim, how you?
How's it going, Johnny?
Oh, not too bad. It's cold as the devil here.
Yeah, I think we got like 6 degrees going on here.
Yeah. Our low's supposed to be around 17. We're about 21 right now.
Ooh.
Lloyd, how you doing?
I'm doing fine. We should be getting the terrible weather later.
Yeah.
But keeping busy.
That's good. Hey, Prof, how you doing? Yeah, I hadn't seen you since last year. Hope you and your family are doing well. No, it's a little warm down there in Australia right now where you're at. All right, Josh has got this burning question he wants to ask.
It's just it's actually I have two questions if you want to hold on. One is I was just experimenting. I had this police LED. It was blue and red. It just flashed. And I decided, why not, I just have a regular red in the other switch, so why not put it in one of my control panels just to experiment. Though, when I throw it, it used to go red and blue, though now it's just staying in red. So if I throw off the, like I turn it off, like I start switching it over, it will flash blue really quick. And then reversed the polarity already, so it's off now. So, does anybody know why that's actually happening? This is controlling a tortoise. I'm reversing the polarity, though it used to flash red and blue, this LED. The other question I have is, I'm modeling the prototype Pennsy, and I'm modeling the Pennsy signals, though I have a short line, or my freelance railroad that is going to have a small little bit of ABS signaling or little bit of signaling. I don't know what type of signal I want to go with. I might go with a searchlight like the WNLE or the Bessemer had, or a type D signal or a G signal like Conrail, like a type D or a nickel plate kind of style with kind of like searchlights with a D signal on there. That's the other thing. What should I go with on my short line? I thought about 7.4s, though that would be too hard, and I already been spending a lot of money on the Pennsy signal heads. I want to go somewhere it's cheap for the short line.
Alright, well, I've got 2 comments on your first question. Prof said that you burned out the blue element, but Prof, I noticed when he flips it down, gets to the center position, it'll flash blue. But when it goes to the bottom position, it doesn't light up blue. Bell Fusion Enterprise said that the blue LED requires a higher voltage than the red LED. So,
Okay. Yeah, though I really only need the red anyway. It's not that big of a deal. I was just experimenting. I just had that one because I got it free from a guy that if I bought some reds, he would give. He said for the day he would give me one red blue LED. I was buying it at a swap meet. He was. It was
Alright.
just something I was just playing with.
Yeah, well, the prof said also northbound that the blue needs more current, just like Bill, than the red. One resistor might be right value for the red, but not enough for the blue.
Okay.
So,
It's a pre-wired one.
yeah.
I'm only going with pre-wired on this, or I've already dealt that with before
Also,
with trying to solder.
also Lee's worried about your drink on the layout. He said if you turn it over, you're going to short everything out.
Nothing's in there. I would have, if something was in there, I would go put it in my cup holders. I have cup holders on the railroad for operators.
Alright, the prof said if the LED is powered from the 12 volt for the tortoise, then volts is not the issue. Current may not be enough for the blue element. So
Okay.
you ain't got enough amperage in there, I guess, for the...
Okay. So, anybody got any comments
anyone
about...
hang on, Andrew. What was that, Josh?
Anybody, any comments on the signals I should go with?
No,
It's just gonna be a bait. No.
No, not yet. What you got,
Okay.
Andrew? What you got, Andrew?
I got a question. If anyone, I'm trying to solve.
Alright, we're losing your audio, Andrew.
I know Lloyd has a question about his
Josh.
operations.
Josh,
Sorry.
I'm trying to get Andrew through here.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah. Your camera's
Does
black.
anyone know of a way to solvent welding?
All I heard was anyone know and soften. Maybe you turn your camera off, it might
Yeah,
help.
I'll try again. I'm not that bad, am I? Come on.
Professor said the wet shoestring from old is failing.
Right, how's that now?
Well, we'll try it and see.
No? Does anyone know of a good way to solvent well PLA plastics? What solvent do I use?
Alright, yeah, if you didn't catch Andrew's question, he wants to know what is the best solvent to use to weld the PLA plastic. Professor said the heat's drying out the shoestring. It's not passing signal well. Alright, Andrew, Professor said that he's been gluing PLA with regular Zappa Gap ACC with no problems.
Zappa Gap.
Yeah. It's a CA type glue. Kevin said Flexifile plastic weld. And Ron was saying MEK.
No, I can use. No, I can weld with acetone. That works beautiful. But I can't print this job in ABS. It has to be PLA.
All right, Lloyd, you have a question?
No.
Okay.
Well, it had to do with operations, but I was speaking to Josh about it, and it was a bit too complicated for me for now. And since I'm not ready for operations, I'll keep that question. I'll ask that same question in about 6 months from now.
Okay.
I see Jim's working on some trees or something in the background.
Yeah, that's what I've been tinkering with most of the week.
Hmm.
All right, Andrew's gone, but
Trouble.
Oh, go ahead.
I said, here comes trouble. I see Andy on the screen.
Yeah, you're swapping Andy's.
Uh,
Nice
Yeah.
to see you, Andy.
What's up, Lloyd? How are you?
Fine.
Professor,
Back home.
yeah, Professor says, go ahead.
What's Prof up to? What's he talking about?
Andrew's PLA question. Professor said that I have a fleet of PLA printed 1-ton NG coal skips, which says ACC works.
Are they resin body? What Andrew was talking about, or are they they're PLA, they're 3D printed? Yes.
Yeah, that roboty's working though.
Okay. Yeah, I was thinking he should use epoxy, like a dilute epoxy with something.
Yeah, because Kevin says PLA is difficult to solvent weld. Most solvents will not touch it.
So there is a solvent that does. There's a solvent that they use in commercial manufacturing. It even works on Delrin, like the material, that weird plastic that they use on freight car trucks. Delrin has been paid for people for decades, and there's a chlorine based ethyl chlorine something, methyl chlorine something that is that works as a solvent for the PLA plastics.
So, Jim, you getting a suntan over there?
Well, we're about 6 degrees.
Okay. Don't need sunscreen yet.
No. Need long johns and stocking caps and vests and all that fun Ohio stuff.
You ain't got us beat by much. I've been in and out. Oh, well, I just now come home and walked in, and it's about, I think it's 9 degrees or 10 degrees. So
You guys ain't used to that.
no, it's cold. It happens to us, but it's cold.
Dude, I was hoping for 30 degrees, so it'd be a little heat wave.
Yeah, we're supposed to warm up some next week.
I can tolerate 30 degrees. I am worried about in a couple of weeks when we're supposed to go to Amherst, and next week they're saying it's end of this. Well, first next week or maybe over the weekend or something. Going to be blizzard conditions in the Northeast. So winter storm. So I'm really wondering what that's going to do to Amherst over the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, they're saying Boston was supposed to get about 2 foot, I believe.
Yeah, I think Mark was telling me that about a foot right now. So, and I planned on driving to Amherst. I may fly it. I like to fly, but if the wife driving is probably more likely.
Where's that at?
Amherst is in Springfield, Massachusetts, so it's just outside of Boston.
Okay, yeah, you're gonna be going right into that.
Yep, right up through New York, right through the city. And I've been to Boston before, but I flew in. It worked a few days, then flew back out. I've been to New Hampshire, but I've always flew in. It worked around. I've never drove all the way up there. Drove up to New Hampshire before. It's a pretty long trip.
I'd say fly it.
If it's just me, I would, but it's starting to get pretty late to be buying a ticket to fly. So,
Yeah, my wife and son, they just came back last week from Philly, New York, and Boston. They came back last Saturday, and it was, as soon as they hit the state line of Ohio, it was just whiteout conditions, and they were showing me pictures, and it was crazy.
they drive.
Yeah, they drove.
Yeah.
It was about 11 hours, but it took them like 14.
How far are you, Andy, driving?
About 13 hours.
Okay.
It's a pretty good drive, and if it's just me, I would much rather fly, no question. But if
I've
it's
got 7.
oh,
For me, it's yeah. For me, it's 7 hours, 7.5 hours.
that's not too bad. That's like going to Pennsylvania was when I went to the Fine Scale Convention. It was about 7 hours. That's not a bad deal. I can deal with 7 hours, no problem. 13 hours, I used to be able to drive that straight. Nowadays, I need a little help to drive 13. I need an hour break somewhere in there to drive 13. I get tired.
I came over to Altoona and met up with you guys because it was like 3 hours door to door for me.
Oh, you really should have done that. We had a grand time. I mean, the convention's a small convention. Good stuff, but a small convention. But we had a good time. I did. I don't know, speak for the other guys, but
Yeah, some of the pictures you guys showed were awesome.
Yeah, we had a good time. That was my
This is
first time up there.
yeah, Pennsylvania is beautiful. It's beautiful. The horseshoe curve was beautiful. It's just it's a good time. I didn't buy much of anything. I bought a few little things. I didn't buy much of anything, but
I'm anxious to get there, to go. I mean,
yeah, I'm excited about Amherst. I'd been wanting to go to Amherst for a few years anyway. It's just such a bad time of the year. I mean, especially to go to Massachusetts. You know, if it was Florida or something, January wouldn't be a big deal. But to go to Boston in into January, and professionally, that's the worst time of the year to take off for me. But it's Miles' last year hosted the clinics up there. They'll still go on, but it's his last year of doing it after a whole lot of years that he's been hosting them. But I'm going to do a couple clinics. Put on a couple clinics for him. I just couldn't turn down doing that for his last year. So it's worth it. That's the thing I like about these things anyway. I can order anything I want off the internet, probably cheaper than I could ever buy it at the shows. So far, I haven't found a deal on a show that I can't beat on the internet anyway. The whole thing with the shows is clinics, lab tours, stuff like that. Mostly networking, meeting up with people, talking to people. But it's the same thing in a business environment. You go to these seminars, these conferences, where you look at products, they train you on this or that. All that material's not that valuable. You can do that easily online, no problem. But the networking, the business networking at a business conference, or the friendship networking at a social thing, that's the only real value I see in it. And it's a good value, but
Yeah, Stu's got a few problems trying to get into up here. He's going to come in on one of the regular hangouts. See if we can't get it worked out.
sure, if he wants to come in after this show's over to whatever, I'll work with him.
All right, Dwight's got a question. Dead rail, battery operated locos, future.
That is the future. Right now, 20 years ago, if you bought a locomotive, adding DCC was a known quantity, just like buying rolling stock. If you bought an Athearn rolling stock, you knew KD couplers and metal wheel sets were going to be an addition. 20 years ago, if you bought a locomotive, adding DCC would have been an absolute requirement. Maybe even 10 years ago, it would have been an absolute requirement to add DCC yourself. Nowadays, the majority of locomotives come with DCC as the standard option, or it is an option to buy it with DCC. In 10 years, or something in that neighborhood, in 10 years, every single locomotive will have a battery. And one of the specs you will get, sound, blah blah blah, you'll get with it. One of the specs is runtime on battery. Just like buying a cell phone, you get battery specs. You'll get battery specs on your locomotive in 10 years. Right now, it's still DIY. And that's one of the things I said. Like, I wrote a column for the e-mag some time ago, DIY versus DIY. And it was a more global thing about scenery products or scratch building a structure as much as electronics. It was largely targeted at electronics, though. And one of the clinics I'm putting on for Miles at the Amherst show is DIY versus DIY. The decision of whether to buy or build is the hardest part of the thing. Doing it yourself is not that hard. Buying it's surely not that hard. But figuring out what to buy and what to build is kind of a tough thing. But one of the advantages to DIY is that you can do some of this bleeding edge stuff that will be standard fare in a decade. But for right now, it's still not for the faint of heart.
Well, Professor goes, no, not the future. For as long as there are a solid set of metal rails, there's a ready-made power bus. Model wood rails, sure.
Okay.
Dead rail all day long.
There's so many problems with using. Okay, so the rail to wheel surface is the worst electrical contact you could have. I mean, it's horrible. It has so many disadvantages, from cleanliness to carbonization to all the intricacies that happen with contacts. It's not just a contact like a plug that wears out. It's a constantly being plugged in all the way as you run your train. It is constantly arcing and all these complications with it. And then you've got all the complexities of power and amperage and sub-buses and short management, and there's so many issues that you have. Now, a lot of that's being resolved with fairly complicated electronics. And I don't know about complicated, but for a novice, they're complicated. For a guy who's familiar with electricity, they're not that hard, especially not these days. And they're a lot easier than figuring out the weird ways to put automotive light bulbs in your path like you used to have to do. It's got easier, but it's still not a good contact surface. Has all kinds of issues. Has maintenance problems. You have things like having to have frog juicers and stuff. That's where the current keepers. I'm a huge fan of the capacitors that or the current keepers that they use. Huge fan. Can't imagine that I wouldn't use those and everything. But battery is everything that is, with the elimination of dealing with the rails, with the elimination of dealing with that massive power supply that you need, because it's just so simple. It's so simple. And then you have no issue with what runs on whose layout, what DCC system, and whether it's compatible, and none of that. You just stick it. All you need is the rails to be the same width. That's it. I still think it'll be the standard. And with things like Blue Rail, which I'm not a big fan of, but I mean, I think it's a great substitute for a DC power pack. But comparing it to the feature sets of current DCC, it's got a ways to go. But with some of the other wireless systems that use DCC, that are wireless and battery, but dead rail, but built on top of DCC, like the system Tam Valley had, that's now spun off and being produced by a different company, that system gives you everything DCC gives you. JMRI, Y throttle, engine driver, signaling, all that stuff. It gives you all that stuff. And then with some of these little DIY boards like the ESP, ESP32's ESP8266 boards, that's like a $3 turnout controller that talks to your Wi-Fi. It's bonehead simple.
When you guys go dead rail, you could easily, other than using the engine house and the track as a charging station, you could probably easily do what we do in O-scale, where in the prototype railroads is where we jump one rail to the other to trigger a signal. Instead of
the way you can even do some really slick things where you jump the rails together, you short the rails together, but you could also short those through an ID transmitter. So when it transmits, so when those rails are being jumped together, it's passing there'll be a chip that's producing a binary, a bit or so, a couple bits of data that have the engine number in it, so that you can get a much better capability that's as good as the Digitrax transponding feature. So you can say, yeah, there's something in this block, but this locomotive is in that block. You can pass information. Right now, the best way to do that's RFID, and RFID is quite complicated. But if you go dead rail, this gets tremendously simpler. And you can charge on the rails. I'm all for charging on the rails. That's not a critical thing to me because my run time's not that much, and I don't have a loop where I want to continuously run for a while. For some people, charging is fine, and you could, put a section of track under your, I put this section of track over there under my water tanks, and put a charger there. And if you're running low on battery, stop and charge for pick up a quick charge.
Yeah, and you can have a water tower or an engine house. You even just need a water where you have a water pipe or something. You could easily just have that section powered, and then you actually park the engine there, like you're actually watering the engine, though it's actually charging the battery, making it actually operational. The other thing, though, in a default with the dead rail stuff, is you would have to have a buffer or a derailer right before a lift bridge, or some kind of way to stop the engine. That's what Miles already found out.
I've got a way to do that. We've talked about this a lot, and that's not a problem just with dead rail. That's the problem with current keepers. And I have an idea. I have to do some testing to figure it out. But I have an idea for how to shut down a locomotive, regardless, just that train, just that locomotive, if it comes into the block ahead of a lift out that is out with a current keeper or battery power or anything else, by using DCC and JMRI to send that trigger to it. Granted, there's some computational activity there, and it'd be good to have a mechanical way to do it by like just shut the power. And there's some ways to do that. If you put a section of track and shorted the rails together, so if you had dead rail, if you shorted those two rails together for that last couple of feet, if the bridge happened to be out, all you have to do is have a circuit in the locomotive that says those two rails are shorted together. And if they're shorted, shut down. So you can have a safety.
Well, I want to interrupt a second, or two or three. Jim, we talked a few minutes last week. You're new in here.
Yes, we did, and yes, I am.
You want to give us a little fill in on what you're doing? And
I'm the exception to the rule. I didn't have a childhood with trains. I just now 2 years ago started my first layout and have been enjoying every aspect of not buying commercial products. So it's been make and repurpose things as I go, and been fairly successful at it.
Well, that's good. You got a website or?
I'm sorry, Andy. What did you say?
That's all right. What got you into it? So how did you get into trades?
Well, those Lamix Christmas villages.
Yeah.
I was gifted a build your own Christmas village, and then realized that okay, the Lamix versions are out there, but they're extremely expensive, and ended up running through that whole Christmas village of building my own with the little masonite buildings, and kind of got bored with that fairly quick.
Sure.
So I purchased a scroll saw and had a whole bunch of scrap material at work that everybody they were throwing out. So I took it home and started building my own buildings for my Christmas village. And then I started trying to find tutorials as far as how I could, up my game with that Christmas village, and stumbled across Modeler Man Mike, and it kind of all went crazy from there, and went from that Christmas village to a Halloween village. And then I'm like, you know what, to heck with it. I'm not going to just hang out and do that for 2 times out of the year. I'm going to have something to where I can just continue working on it, and it's going to be a permanent structure.
So that didn't hurt too bad when you tripped over Mike, did it?
No, it didn't.
Yeah, he's got some good stuff on his page.
Yeah, I just that was right at the beginning of me starting to wrap my head around the idea that okay, I'm gonna start building my own train layout, and just jumped in full force, and it's been a strong ride ever since.
Yeah. So have you actually got a layout going yet, or
what was that?
Have you got your layout going yet, or?
Oh yeah, I threw it together fairly quick, so it's still kind of flat, and there's not much different
elevations.
Yeah, but it is somewhat. I kind of took the easy route as far as track work, and just went with the Bachmann Easy Track, just to get something going.
Good starter.
And yeah, like I said, it's my first go around, and I'm still trying to figure out if I want to keep going with that easy track and ballast around it, or if I want to just go flex track and glue it down. But this kind of is this layout is more of the learning curve.
Yeah,
I'm going to try and get as much knowledge and kind of make my mistakes on this one, like Andy said before. My chainsaw layout.
Absolutely. Good confidence.
Have fun with it and learn some more techniques. And I even got my 13-year-old daughter into it. She's building a diorama with me, and maybe one day I'll just donate this layout to her and build my own shed to house my real layout.
Have you seen Marklet of Sweden's videos on YouTube?
No.
He's got a deep channel on it's a little bit different style of modeling than U.S. modeling tends to be, but he's done some videos on using that Marklet track that has the integrated ballast profile, and he balances it, integrates it into the scenery, and makes it look pretty doggone good. It'd be worth checking his channel out to see how he made that roadbed profile integrate. And a lot of people use Kato Unitrack, which I don't like the ballast profile. Admittedly, I prefer regular track on whatever roadbed, homicide or court, whatever. I prefer that. But people use that Kato Unitrack and make it look superb. So it's entirely doable.
I mean, I've weathered it to where it's not shiny gray plastic, and the side of the rail sticks out like a chunk of chrome on the front of a car. So it's got a little bit of a weathering to it, and You know,
But they make a larger curve radius, and you could cut this stuff, so you could make whatever kind of track plan works for you. It's workable. It's the turnouts that are the problem, in my opinion, with the Bachmann Easy Track. And it's a fine starter, but the Bachmann Easy Track turnouts are not perfect, to be generous.
I got several here asking what your channel is, Jim.
It's just Jim Watson. I only got a couple videos up on it. Yeah, that turnout, Andy. I ended up getting that at a train show, and the first time I ran past it, it threw something, and I'm like, okay, this is horrible, and I'm not gonna keep it in there.
Yeah, they're like the worst turnout. Like they're like what you can buy turnouts that are that bad without the road bed too, like the Atlas, whatever the really cheap Atlas number 4 turnouts are.
That's a snap switch.
Snap switches. They have a stamped or bent piece of metal for the points and stuff instead of a piece of rail, so they don't have any rigidity, and they don't line well. They wear horribly. They're just not good. Now there are track systems with integrated roadbed that are quite good, like NTH makes a track system that has the roadbed that looks pretty good. Cato famously does, that are still quality, but with the ballast profile. But if you're setting up track temporarily on a table, or if you're a carpet railroad guy, that's great. That's fine. Get the track up out of the carpet. Things will run better. That's a great idea. But on a permanent layout, cork's just not that hard to work with. Now, I like Hobobeam, which looks like cork, but it's Hobosote. I favor that. It's a flex track or something. But
I work at a office furniture warehouse, so Hobosote for tack boards. I can get chunks of that for no problem. And I mean, I literally have maybe $250 invested in my layout right now.
I take pride in that too. I have built my entire layout all the way around the room, and I've got hundreds of dollars, not thousands, in everything, because I buy next to nothing. I buy plenty of stuff. I just don't buy stuff from motor railroad supply companies. I buy it from the art store, from the hardware store.
Yep, Apple barrel paints. I'm okay with that. I mean, yep. even down to my airbrush. I just bought an airbrush. When I had the mishap with the 3D printer of not being able to communicate, I returned that and ended up getting a little air compressor from Harbor Freight and a little airbrush. And I mean, I really don't have much invested as far as the equipment. Just kind of tools that like that is fairly microscopic when it comes to the overall potential of investing.
I've told a number of people why it's always important to buy a compressor if you have an airbrush, because there's 3 primary reasons for it. The first one is you're paying for air. That you buy aerosol cans, and I don't know how much they cost, but here in the UK they can be as much as £10 for a bottle of it.
Wow.
Air. So compressor, you buy 10 bottles, you've already bought your compressor.
Sure.
The second one is that you've got the pressure problem. So as you go lower down the can, as you use up the air, the pressure drops, and so you start off spraying up here, and by the time you finish, you're there, because you're trying to get the last bit of air out of it. And then the third reason, and it's the most important reason, the easiest way to screw up an airbrush is to not clean it. And if you're worried about wasting air, then you're not going to use it for cleaning it.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I had thought about that consideration. I knew it was inconsistent. I thought about buying a few cans of air to get started with, but an air compressor is just not that expensive. And I bought a big, a Bostech, compressor that I could run nail guns with. It's way overkill, but it's useful for so many things.
Well, then it's not going to keep ticking on and distracting you, because I mean, if you're in your workshop, nice and quiet, and all of a sudden that little compressor kicks on. That's all I got is a little tiny hot dog compressor, and you know, I'll be sitting there working, and it'll catch me off guard. It's nice and quiet, and all of a sudden it fires up and startles you, and next thing you know, you're making a line off this way. It's like, oh well, let's start again on that one.
But I'm jumpy anyway. Walmart has I think it's Walmart, maybe it was Lowe's, but I think it's Walmart had a separate tank, a portable tank, so you could fill it up, take it out, fill the tire up in your car or something. They had a portable tank for $30, maybe, something in that neighborhood. I keep meaning to get to pick one up when I'm there, and I always forget to go look for it.
Yeah, I think Harbor Freight's got one. And Andrew in Australia said Andy is part Scottish. Deep pockets, short arms.
Short in most ways, so yeah.
I actually built my own air compressor.
What?
I built my own compressor about, I don't know, nearly 10 years ago now. Yeah, let me show you.
It run on nuclear energy or something?
No. This is my air compressor. It's on a board with a frame around it, and it's on some casters, so I can move it around. So this is a motor from a refrigerator, and then it goes up a pipe that goes to a water trap that gets rid of any oil and water. Because you know, effectively what it does is it sucks air in, it compresses it, and blows it out. And if you blow, you know, the air is moist, especially where I live. It rains all the time. So what happens is you get a bit of oil and water in your mixture, so the water trap gets rid of that. Then I've got a T-junction on it that goes to my a fire extinguisher. That's a carbon dioxide fire extinguisher. It's a nice solid tank. And then there's another T-junction on which has got this pressure release valve here. So this is rated at 115 psi. And then this goes up to the final piece, which is a gauge regulator and another water trap. And then it comes out the side there, and there's my airbrush just there, and that's the pipe going up to it. And this cost me it's cost me about £80 to build. And when I built it, this kind of system would be about £300 to buy.
So you have 100 pound or 100 psi fire extinguisher. You could put a fire out and knock 3 people backwards with it.
Yeah, you can dry your hair with this thing if you really push it at full pressure. You know, I've sprayed a bicycle with it. But you know, I use cellulose paint, car paint, for my model train stuff, and airplanes for that matter. So you know, but it was a good way to you know, to save some money.
That's fascinating. Not always, but more often than not, I tend to lean on the side of build it instead of buy it. I mean, I do that professionally. I do that in my hobby. I tend to prefer to build.
How you doing, Ralph?
Howdy, guys.
Howdy.
What's up, man?
What kind of trouble are we getting into tonight?
As much as we can find. It's still early now.
Yeah.
Come on. Let's go. Come on. No, you're not going there, Craig. Come on. There's no more.
So you feeling better, Ralph?
A little.
Oh, okay.
Still got the runny nose and the drip in the back of the throat and all that kind of good old crap.
That's what they call the man's cold, eh?
Yeah, I guess. I don't know. Hey, it's a proven fact now. When men get a cold, they actually get it worse than women do.
Yeah.
Yep.
Huh. So my wife calling me a baby about it doesn't have any merit whatsoever. I needed that information.
Not a bit. And you can search it on the internet and you'll find that I'm right.
I'm all over that. I need to show that to my wife desperately. Been a while since I got to be right about something, so.
Well, today I am designing a new modelling table. At the moment I've got a fold-up table with a wooden rig over the top of it so I can put cameras to look down, so when I do modelling I can demonstrate what I'm doing. But it's a little bit wobbly and I had to take it down because I designed it so the legs telescope, so you can basically bunch it down to almost nothing. I can effectively get something that's really wide into about that square and tall. But what I'm thinking instead is to have basically a table that folds down and then have underneath legs that fold out and then telescope out. And then for the top piece have another set of leg type pieces which go over the top and telescope out and then just sit on the top.
Oh. All right.
You're going to build the sub-assembly table and everything, because I've been using folding tables for everything, and I really need a different work surface. Folding tables are not ideal. They work, but
yeah, that's the problem. It just it's a little bit wobbly at times, and it's a little bit too narrow. Because what I do with my camera, my tablet can control it, so you can zoom in and out with it. But the problem is that it sort of ends up just on the edge of the line of sight for the camera. And I would prefer it to be a little further out of the way so that I don't have to move the camera. I don't have to move the tablet out of the way whenever I want to do some soldering or something else that I need to have in my right hand. So I just want a wider, slightly deeper table.
I guess we ought to do a show sometime on work tables. What people have come up with. Because it seems like no matter what size work table you have, everybody winds up with the same amount of workspace. 12 to 15 inches.
Oh, yeah.
There you go. Mine looks worse than that.
Oh, yeah, mine too.
It's 5 feet wide, and I think I made 24, maybe 30 inches deep.
I kind of lucked out. My landlord left a old dining room table, and when we were moving in here, just use it for a workbench or whatever, and put it in the dining room. I don't care. And well, now it's covered in paint and holes drilled in it, and I used it for a workbench.
I knew a guy when I was in the gun club. I'd never been to his house, but his wife said he actually did it. He decided he didn't want to have to do his reloading in a different room and not be able to watch TV or anything like that. So he put his reloader on the coffee table, cut him a hole in it, put a bucket under there to catch the loaded bullets. She said, yeah, that's a real good conversation piece when people come over.
I don't see my wife going for that.
Yeah.
She's kicked me out of the living room entirely. I had a couple sheets of styrofoam in there, but she wasn't having that no more. So I really don't think I'm going to get to cut a hole in the coffee table.
Yeah, Professor said he's rebuilding his modeling room as we speak, trying to find room for everything.
I just got to find shelving again. There's too much crap on top of it.
Yeah.
about 2 years ago, I took the meter, and that was my resolution to find my workbench and my workshop again. And well, that was also 2 years ago.
New Year's resolution 3 years in a row.
Yeah, a lot of things kind of accumulate. A lot of different projects. This isn't just my modeling workshop. It's also my wood shop and every other project that's going on.
Miles said about the best trick in the world for us modelers. He sold a cabinet. I forget, like the kind of cabinet that's like, looks like a piece of, my wife's been wanting to buy one for a while. Looks like a closet you can hang clothes up in a, like a closet, but it's a cabinet, but it's a furniture piece.
Oh,
but he has
a wardrobe or?
Yeah, wardrobe. That's the ticket.
Right.
No, I call everything a chest of drawers, and I don't know, but so she's been talking about those. But he's got a cabinet that's much like that. The ends open and have detail parts and stuff in it. But the main part of it has these drawer slides, and it has a board in it, maybe with sides or not. And on that board, you can put a project. So you can put a structure that you're working on, the parts for it, etc. on that board. You take that board out of that cabinet, take that board, set it at your workbench, and work on that structure. Take that board. When you get to a stopping point, if wet glue, wet paint, whatever, pick it up, take it, slide it back in that cabinet, set it there. So you can be project oriented. So all your tools can stay on your workbench, but each of your projects can have a separate little sled or whatever to kind of live on, which is great since I build about everything as a diorama, you know, structures wise. Any important structures, I build out of a pseudo diorama anyway, and then integrate it on the layout in a way that's, you know, maybe not easily removable, but removable.
Just make your base for your diorama or your structure to fit in that shelf, those shelf pins, and that's a brilliant idea. I mean, you can pick those little bookcases, even the little board, paper, wood from Walmart, or heck, even Big Lots probably have them.
Sure, yeah. Order it off IKEA. Just get a bunch of little shelves to set stuff in on. That would work like a champ. That would work so much easier for me. And I've already been doing most of mine on a diorama base. Been using foam core, but after going to the Fine Scope convention, I'm kind of sold on that Gator foam. That stuff is spectacular to build the dioramas on as a base. It's lightweight as it can be and rigid as a sheet of plywood, and very dimensionally accurate, dimensionally solid.
Like, is that stuff like Masonite sandwich with styrofoam?
Yep, it's about it. I use foam core for a long time. I mean, I got a temporary backdrop stuck up right here, and I use foam core for all, and I've got several already built out of foam core. I've made roads out of foam core by ripping one side of it off. I've used it a lot. This whole little corner over here has a little diorama, and I built it on the workbench, then and put the mat down and everything. I need to finish it, but these two houses and all the stuff around it, all the grass mat and everything, is one big odd-shaped, egg-shaped diorama. This whole piece can pick right up out of the hole that it's in. And I've shaped that ground goop right up around all the sides of it, wrap it in saran wrap, and then formed the ground goop to it, and then took it off and worked it. I take that whole piece out of there, and I got several done that way. But the foam core is very, very flexible, so it doesn't work very well. It's just not rigid. The Gator foam's expensive, and so a source for it has been elusive to me so far, but I will find a good way to get a hold of it that is affordable.
Try and figure out, like, gosh, I know it's probably a long shot, but it's like a supply company for core board.
Yeah.
And my company again does a lot of custom fabricated work surfaces, like conference tables, your cafeteria, and they just now kind of came out with more of a honeycomb cardboard core.
Yeah.
With like a very thin masonite or a Luan sandwiched sandwiching that, you know, and kind of comes in on top and bottom, and then it's a honeycomb shaped cardboard, and that goes all the way up to 2 3/4, I believe.
Wow.
So
Yeah, they make that gator foam up to 2 inches, but I can't imagine how expensive that is because the half.
it's fairly expensive.
Oh yeah, any of those processed structured materials like that are going to be expensive. Did you say you were in Ohio? Your company's up there? Because I'm just in Kentucky. Go hop skip. You know, it's a hop skip jump over to Ohio. That's an official distance in Kentucky. So hop skip to jump's a little further than a fur piece.
It's a local company, but it's Bennett Supply, I believe, is one of our suppliers, and that they're fairly good with different materials in that aspect. They might have some of that gator board. Who knows?
Source for it. I mean, even if they could order it,
yeah.
I ended up ordering styrofoam from my local hardware company that's like 3 miles down the road. I pay a premium for it, but I don't have to drive to get it. So it's time. Money matters to me too, but my most precious commodity is not money; it's time.
Mm-hmm.
You said Bennett?
Yes, Bennett Supply. They're more of like a countertop supplier.
Bennett Supply of Ohio. Yep. In Macedonia. Macedonia,
yeah. And I'll check on the other company name.
Well, cool. That'd be interesting. Thank you. That'd be help to a lot of us. I mean, you know, I don't know that it'd be a big deal in business, but if a few of us reached out to him to get a product, I got a friend of mine's into high-end stereos. Like he's got an dedicated audio room. It's got about more than $20,000 in his stereo, and it's spectacular. I wouldn't spend that on it, but it's really incredible. And he wants to put a homicide on all the walls. And I said, what we need to do is just go in and put an order together and buy you a bunch of sheets. I'd buy a bunch of sheets, and it'd be worthwhile for the hardware company to buy us a half a pallet or something if we would buy enough. I just individually can't buy enough material to make it worth anybody's time to pull me.
Now, what is the difference between Homosoap and like ceiling tiles? That's a cellulose, a paper base, correct?
They are the same material as far as I know, maybe a different glue, but they're just compressed cellulose. Homosoap has a much higher density, though. I've seen people use ceiling tile. I've got a few pieces of ceiling tile here. I've used it to make some rock work. Lloyd does some rock work that looks a lot better than mine.
We tried it doing it.
Okay results with doing the rock work on ceiling tile. It's okay. I could probably get better at it. But for spiking, it's not dense enough to hold spikes well. Homosoap has that really nice balance where it's dense enough to hold a spike, but still soft enough, for lack of a better word, to disperse sound and be a good sound insulation.
Yeah, Bill Fusion Enterprise said the gator foam came back to Uline. So,
yeah,
Uline supplier near you. You might look to see what their gator foam is.
Yeah, and I think maybe Ralph had mentioned them too, and I looked them up. I forget what I found out about it, honestly, but.
So, what I was saying it's Macedonia. I think you were saying the town name when you were reading off the company's town location.
Yeah, Macedonia, Ohio.
Yeah, that's actually a NS is there. Really, they have a industrial park and a couple yards there.
Yeah, it's way up on the north side, actually. So that's, you know, Ohio is a hop, skip, and a jump to me. The far northern territory of Ohio is a fur piece. So we can't. That don't make sense. But if I can find a U-line here, maybe. I tried with the side company. I could buy foam core from them in 42 by 6 feet. So 3.5 by 6 feet. I could buy foam core sheets from them for $20 a piece. He gets that material. I could buy that Citra, the board that Miles uses to make those exceptional background structure or background flats. I could get that from that side company. But Homosoap and foam core or a gator foam, either one of those, he has to buy it too high a quantity for me to be able to justify it. And if I built a big railroad and needed a whole bunch of it, you know, sure, I'd buy 25 sheets of it, put it in the garage. But right now, 25 sheets is absurd.
I'm looking at the pink stuff you've got behind you, Andy. Is that a similar kind of foam you're talking about? Is that foam?
It is. My whole railroad is built out of foam. Just foam. There's not a stick of wood in any of it. Now, what you're seeing now is held up by tripods because I'm tipping. I'm just kind of doing a temporary setup until I get the rest of it. Now, all the rest of the layout is held up by, you know, by brackets. But it's just, you know, there's no wood. It's just foam. And it's fine. I mean, it's perfectly rigid. But that's because there's a lot of laminates. You know, there's a lot of layers of the foam. So it gets quite rigid. So that whole peninsula, which is 7 foot wide, is held up by 2 tripods, and it's perfectly stable. What's, you know, it wouldn't be if it's just stacked there, but with it being glued together, it is. Now that gator foam we're talking about is kind of akin to foam core. It has a thin, well, not necessarily thin because you can get it up to 2 inches thick, but that's expensive. But what I would
mine's the same diameter or dimension or the same thickness, but then the foam is a little bit thicker of a core.
Yeah, but you can get like 3/16, which is the thickness I want, 3 or 5/16. But instead of having paper on the surface of it, which leaves it fairly flexible and lacks rigidity, gator foam has an MDF. It's a thin layer of MDF, but it has an MDF on the front and back, and it's quite smooth. I mean, you can put melamine on it or formica on it, have a surface. But a 4x8 sheet is as rigid as a sheet of a sheet of half-inch or a half-inch plywood, maybe more rigid than a sheet of half-inch plywood, and perfectly dimensionally accurate, solid, and lightweight as it can be.
Probably a little bit more workable than MDF would be.
Yeah, without all that weight.
I would.
But you could screw it together. The guy that was showing it off at that clinic at the Fine Scale show had screwed it together. He had cut it into 3-inch wide strips or so and built all of his framework, a fairly traditional framed layout, like an L girder or whatever, but an open box style framed layout. And he had built all of his material using that material. He had built his road bed, track profile road bed out of that gator foam and built all the risers out of gator foam. And there's a lot of people building modules out of it because it's super light and rigid and you can screw it together.
I've been using blue foam for several years for War Games terrain originally, but used it for model railway stuff as well. And I find that's good. It's, you know, it's not as crumbly as the pink stuff. It's, you know, and you can carve it with a knife. It's really nice for that kind of thing.
Oh, see, I've used the blue before. So there's 3 colors made by 3 different companies. This stuff is Corning, and I think the blue stuff is DuPont or something. I don't remember, but there's 3 different companies that make it. Their formulation is really similar. In my opinion, I don't care if it's blue or pink. I'm fine with either one of those. But at each company in a given area has contracts. I find talking to people on here that varies all over the country for us. In my area, the Lowe's carries the green stuff, Home Depot carries the blue stuff, Menards carries the pink stuff. The green stuff has kind of a slickness to it. I wouldn't call it oily, but even after you cut it, it has a weird kind of silky texture. And I tried a piece of it. When I decided to build this layout, I started experimenting with foam. And I bought a 2 foot by 4 foot section of the green stuff from Lowe's because that's what they had there. And I couldn't get anything to stick to it. Spackle. Because my first module, that module over there, has no ground goop on it. Like this one's covered in that, you know, covered in this ground goop material that I use. That's paper mache and latex paint, vermiculite, whatever. But it's basically paint and paper mache. And my first module, I had never heard of ground goop before, and I didn't want to use plaster. So I carved just with the utility knife, and I tried a hot wire, but I hated that. I just carved it with a utility knife and then sanded it until I got a perfectly smooth as a baby's butt over the whole thing. And I used a little spackle around the seams. And then I sanded all that. So that module was perfectly smooth. And then I just painted it with brown latex paint and dirt and all that stuff. But that's real time consuming. So then once I found out about the ground goop, because I just didn't want to cover it in plaster. Once I found out about the ground goop, now I just kind of rough it in and then coat it in ground goop. And I can put together in an open area where I didn't have to turn it and move it. I could set up in the garage. I could take a sheet of styrofoam, a couple sheets of styrofoam, and I could build a 2 foot by 8 foot module and carve up all the styrofoam in a couple hours, taking my time looking at it. I could coat it in ground goop, and in a few hours, I could go from nothing to brown, covered in dirt, you know, a complete module with just all the scenic detailing to add after in a few hours. There's no way I could get there with plaster, with screen wire, or with cardboard strip lathing, or any of those methods. I cannot imagine a method that is faster than styrofoam. And it's cheap and light, and I can't find an advantage to any method other than styrofoam personally, other than strength. It's not strong, so you have to support it. But I'm not climbing on my layout. I don't need to climb on my layout. It's at eye level. I don't like to get that high up the air if I don't have to anyway. So, but we build our layouts like we're going to park the Harley on them, and I'm not. You know, it holds a few pound locomotive.
I'm kind of guilty of that myself. I got 4x4s for leg.
But I have too, and I've said before, you know, I defend my method that I'm using here. But first and foremost, this was entirely an experiment that I didn't, and in some extent, I'm still not sure it'll work completely. Some of the things I'm trying, like this whole center area, there's a helix goes in this right here in this little cubby hole that I'm kind of sitting in. There's a helix goes right here, and the helix is going to be held from the ceiling on all thread. So it's all a bunch of experiment, but this is my 13th layout. Counting all the 4x8 sheet layouts I had when I was a kid and the few around the room stuff before I got out of the hobby some years ago and before I came back. 13th layout. Every layout I've ever had before was either, you know, a plywood table or open box frame or L girder. They always use plaster. They always use plywood. They always use cork road bed. You know, I've used all those standard methods. This time around, I just didn't want to do the same thing. So I gave something else a shot for a while. And some things work and some things don't. And if it don't work, I'll adjust.
But you still went with Homosoap.
That's the only traditional method. And I looked for a while. I bought ceiling tiles. I bought various things, trying other methods. I have not found, and I don't need the Homosoap now. But when I first started building the layout, I intended to traditionally hand lay with spikes. And I thought, sure, I needed a material like Homosoap or similar. I would love to, and I tried to get a hold of a product called Micore, M-I-C-O-R-E, and it's another byproduct produced, and they make like 5 different densities and various thicknesses. But just like many of these other specialty products, it's too hard to get in the small quantities we needed. So Homosoap's the only traditional product I used. Now, because I hand lay my track, I do hand lay my track, of course. I couldn't imagine, building, any other way to do track. I just prefer to hand lay. But because I use contact cement to hand lay it and spike very little, and I use these really super small scale spikes that don't go through the tie anyway, when I do spike, I don't need the Homosoap necessarily. I could totally put it on something else. However, I was kind of already committed at that point. And Homosoap, I have not found a great substitute for Homosoap. Now, you could take Homobed and put it on that gator foam. I'm not sure that I won't try that. I think that's very interesting.
There's the gator foam.
Is that a 1/2 inch?
That's 1/2 inch.
Yeah. See, I think that would make a great road bed.
30-second fiberboard on either side.
Okay.
And you can cut it with a hobby.
Really?
Yep.
I figured I'd need a scroll saw or something to cut it, but
no,
yeah.
you can cut it with a hobby knife.
Oh.
score it a couple times and then break it?
No, it'll cut right through.
Really?
Yep.
And then if you put a hobo bed on top of that, or if you were using flex track, you could just use that pipe insulation that you like. Yeah, look at that stuff, man. That stuff's stout as it could be.
There's no deviation at all.
That stuff's either really stout or Ralph is really weak, which is both are entirely possible. So
Well, I mean, he has been sick.
that's right. We'll give you a pass. But it's stout. They passed it around at that clinic, and we got some hands on with it, and it's tough. It's really tough.
Yep.
All right. Well, Marty down in Australia, he said, "How about steel bench work with electromagnet in the floor? Make the layout levitate at any height."
There you go. I like that.
What?
That's right up my alley. John.
Do what, Andy?
Steel bench work and an electromagnet and what else?
No, steel bench work, but electromagnet in the floor and levitate the bench work.
Ralph has done
Then
on a smaller scale.
you can get rid of your tripods.
I totally could. I like it. And that's the key. Well, and that's portable.
We're talking about regular trains.
It's heavy. And I do like the idea of using studs, steel studs.
This steel stud framework works beautifully.
Yes, I'm a total fan. If you hadn't talked to me into doing all threads, which is funny since you're the guy who argues with me about my non-traditional layout methodologies all the time, and then I think you're just trying to push the envelope at this point, trying to talk me into doing something ever crazier than I already have and get me to top myself.
Nothing could be crazier than you've already done. So
Maybe, but hanging
it's trying to bring you in off the ledge.
Well, I was just going to build a half wall under the peninsula and stuff. I hadn't thought of, with steel studs. I didn't like that idea, but that's the best thing I could think of that would make that workable. And I was worried about it being kind of flimsy out at the end because it's just coming out the floor L and, coming out at an L. But the idea of all threads hanging the helix from the ceiling is a spectacular idea. I was just surprised it came from you.
I threw it out there as a real, way out in left field somewhere.
I bet.
And you managed to catch it, so.
I bet. It's just
Ralph, if it's in left field, Andy's going for it every time.
Probably.
Every time. Yep.
But it makes sense. It's logical. It's an entirely rational way to do it. I mean, the helix is going to weigh 10 pounds, maybe, with a train on it, 20. I mean, it doesn't have to be heavy. It doesn't, I can climb around on a wall made from steel studs, but it doesn't have to hold my fat butt up. It has to hold 20 pounds. So I'm all for overbuilding, but massively overbuilding. Building a swing set out of construction grade steel so your 60-pound kid can swing on it, it's a little overbearing.
All right. Well, I'll tell you what. We had a couple of them asking the question a lot earlier. We got off on this others, but they wanted to know what Lloyd is building.
You laugh. What are you laughing at? I don't think your layout is funny.
No,
I like your layout.
I too.
Okay.
Cool.
Okay, I've got a platform for an RDC, DCR, what do you call it?
Yeah, RDC.
RDC, which is a little bit higher, well, it comes up to this height. So I've got the platform, which is here. Hold on. So I've got a platform, I guess, which is like this.
All right.
Okay. It's only one RDC, and it's going from one town to the other. And I needed a way to get people up there on the platform. And that's the only way I thought of. I thought about you call it pedestrian over a bridge that goes over the track. Yep. I said, nah. Then I didn't want to change anything on my layout, so basically I played with what I had.
Well, looks good.
And,
Yeah, man.
Oh, Lloyd.
yep.
Marty said lunch today is turkey sandwiches.
Isn't he too early for that? Yeah, so that I've also worked on my other yard. It's almost complete. I'm just waiting for 3 curved turnouts to come in so I can finish it.
Do you use Shinohara, Walther's turnouts in your layout?
No, but I was going to buy 3 because I needed 3 of them, and the company, well, the hobby shop where I ordered my stuff, they only had 1, so they told me that Pico 125 ST or something like that was pretty much close to it, so that's what he's sending me, and it's $9 cheaper. So
yeah, the Picos look a lot better nowadays. Used to, Picos have always performed flawlessly. Mechanically, a Pico is a great turnout. Traditionally, their U.S. prototype didn't look as good. The European looked fine, I thought. I don't know as much about European, but they looked fine. The U.S. was what had some cosmetic issues, but not recently. The Pico track cosmetically looks good, mechanically works great, and you can remove that spring from them. That spring loads them, and so you can put a tortoise under it.
And mount the tortoise.
Yeah, just pop that spring off there. Be careful doing it.
Or servos, new one as well.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of the servos because my bench work. The whole reason I started with the styrofoam thing is I wanted to get my bench work down to just a couple inches thick, so I could build several decks. And servos really help me do that because tortoises are a lot deeper, or they're deeper. They're more expensive. And you can mount the tortoises sideways, use a remote mount for them, but boy, if they're already expensive at $20+ a piece, adding a $10 remote mount to them,
Yeah, but Andy, I have 96 to install, so I didn't feel like installing 96 servos.
Yeah, they're about the same as putting a tortoise in. They ain't much different.
Nah.
And you don't have to put the side mount extension on the tortoise. All you have to do is mount it sideways and run a what the hell do they call it? A lever from a fulcrum point.
Yeah.
And run it through a couple of eyelets or a tube out to where the turnout is, and it's good.
Yeah, I could have done that. I have 2 inches under the track work to work with. Not everywhere, but just about everywhere. Because I started out not knowing. I've always used tortoises before. So when I started building this, I thought I was going to turn the tortoises sideways to use that. As I started progressing, I started seeing some of the stuff Barry was talking about with servos, and started seeing some people who were building them. And I was pretty excited about servos. I did order some not magnet wire, that memory wire, cadmium. There's a name for it, but I can't think of it right now. But that memory wire, and I've got a piece of it, not a big piece, but a piece of it laying here. And I'm going to experiment with using that memory wire to make a turnout mechanism. So when you put electricity through it, you can bend it. And you take the electricity away, it goes back to the original shape. When you add the electricity back to it again, it goes back to the shape that you bent it to while it was under electricity. So I could charge that wire to pull the turnout one way, take the charge off the wire, and it would return the turnout back to its original position. And it's utterly silent, which is perfect because I want to make my machine controlled turnouts, the ones that are CTC dispatch controlled. I've got a whole bunch of those little 1-inch speakers like Lloyd has too. We got from Miles. I got like 700 of them. I'm going to put them. I'm putting them under the track every 18 inches too for under track sound effects and squealing and all that, and birds chirping and crap like that. And then I'm going to put them under each of the turnouts. So as the turnout mechanism moves the turnout, you get that cluck for the unlock, and then that cheek, 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 because they're kind of a geared mechanism that moves them.
What was that noise again?
I'm not doing it a bunch of times. All the weird sound effects you can get out of me. Well, you're still likely to get another sound effect or two out of me. knowing you.
Thanks, Ralph. I'm too new to ask that sarcastic questions.
No, you're not.
It's all right. It's all right.
Like I told you the other week, just jump in.
I have made a joke that I do manual DCC sound.
Maybe. There you are. Get a few more of those out of him. That's the way to do it. Yeah, you can't, Jim. You can't be shy around us. Most of us ain't very shy. You ain't gonna bother me.
I kind of feel like I already know most of you guys. I've seen quite a bit of the shows.
So then nothing's new to you then?
Nothing's
just
really
being live
new.
is new, that's all.
Yeah, being a part of it is new.
That's a little bit different experience. You know, getting to the regular nightly shows and stuff, it's a little different experience.
Yeah,
we get to be pretty decent friends up.
Normally I'm interrupted by my coworkers, or I'm sitting at my desk at work freezing and playing with paperwork, so it's a lot better to be playing with my train stuff and modeling and actually being a part of it.
Exactly.
Instead of wishing I was at home playing with my train stuff.
Yeah, but you gotta pay the bills, so.
Yeah, unfortunately, that's the way the bank is set up, you know.
Yeah. Well, I tell you what, this is the beginning of the new year, so we always like to try to start things out right. Yeah, as much as we can. Since we ended last year with a 3-hour show.
See how long that lasts, but I appreciate your effort to try.
Yeah. I guess
I think that was partially my fault because I didn't shut up.
No, that was fine. That was fine. But I think we're going to go ahead and shut this one down. We're trying to keep things to an hour and a half, whenever possible. But the last show was a little unusual. We had new people here. We're always glad to meet new people.
See, I was still trying to get in an hour and a half.
Huh?
I was still trying to get in at an hour and a half.
Yep.
Well, we got you going, so now it doesn't take long. Alrighty. Well, I'll tell you what, we'll go ahead and shut this one down. And let's see, I got me a 2018 calendar up here now, so.
Wow.
And I
haven't got mine yet.
And I actually filled it in today, too. So let me do a few clicks here. I want to say I appreciate everybody coming in over on the chat side. Good to see everybody. Hopefully nobody's froze up yet. So just try to stay warm the best you can. Appreciate everybody coming in the panel here. Got Lloyd and Jim and Andy, Ralph, Cliff, and what's his name? The loud kid. Josh.
The one with the orange shirt on.
Yeah, Josh. But anyhow, I want to say go to YouTube, modelbuilders.com. There at the website, you can check on show schedules. The schedules for the Tuesday and Wednesday show are posted there for the first quarter of 2018. And those shows are at 8 o'clock Central, 9 o'clock Eastern Time. The Thursday show is at 9 o'clock Central, 10 o'clock Eastern Time. And also be sure to click on the eMag, sign up for email notification. So when it comes out, you'll be notified. And we got one coming out, sometime around the middle of the month or a little bit later. JD got tied up in a snowstorm, so I'm sure that delayed him for a little bit. Next week, we're going to have the fine scale build on January the 9th. After that, it'll be the 17th. Will be into the locomotive shop with Joe and Big Bill and Barry. And then on 23rd, we got weathering, mainline workbench to main line. Sorry, Ralph.
Okay.
Got a little tongue-tied, but that's the lineup for this month. So I hope everybody has a good weekend. Try to stay warm the best you can. And we shall see you next week on the 9th for the Fine Scale Show. So have a good evening.
Bye-bye.